One day, two non-athletes woke up and said, "Hey, let's do a sports podcast." These courageous warriors faced great obstacles such as mediocre microphones, Skip Bayless, and Matt Hendrickson. This is The Unathletic. Welcome to this edition of The Unathletic, everyone. I'm your host, Ben Friedel, and alongside me, as always, Nate Wiggins. What's going on, Nate? It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, but I'm doing great. And we're actually not recording from USD today. We are recording from my dining room in my house.
Yes, we are at Nate's house. He still lives with his mom, but I also do, so it is okay, definitely. Yep, just a couple of guys just living at their parents' house and talking about sports. You know, it's just kind of
this is the life. This is the dream, right?
You know, that's kind of why we're called The Unathletic.
Yep.
Otherwise, I think we would be playing college sports, but we are not that good. So I think before we get into it, Nate, I think it's going to be good to reaffirm what this show is about. So every week, we usually want to talk about these sports and stories that may not get enough attention on major media sports outlets. So today, for instance, we're talking a lot about Champions League soccer. So we'll get into that a little bit later. But we also kind of sometimes fall into the pitfall of what everyone else is talking about because
that's not a bad thing always.
Let's face it, it's exciting.
Yes.
The NCAA March Madness finals are tonight, and I know you're very excited as a Michigan fan. We will get into that in a little bit. But so every week we just want to talk about what we want to talk about, and we hope you guys enjoy this episode. So kind of jumping right into it, Nate. I remember I was actually on a retreat all week with no service, and I came back to a text that said, "Please tell me you saw Zlatan's goal." And I thought my out of that conversation would have been, "Oh, I was gone all week. I didn't see it, but it just so happens that it had just happened."
It had just happened. That's why I texted you, yeah.
Exactly. So, Nate, enlighten our listeners, maybe those who are unfamiliar with MLS, what Zlatan Ibrahimovic did over the weekend.
So, for those of you who don't know, Zlatan Ibrahimovic is a Swedish center forward, and he's one of the
self-proclaimed greatest of all time.
He has been one of the best players of the last 15 years. He's the all-time Swedish goal scorer, and he's been successful everywhere he's been, whether that was with Juventus, AC Milan, Barcelona, PSG, or just recently with Man United. He has been just absolutely tremendous wherever he's been. And so he decided that after conquering Europe, he wanted to come and conquer America.
And those were his words.
Yes, exactly. And so
not the most humble individual, but
he backs it up. He backs
so
it up. If you want to talk, if you back it up, I'm cool with all of that. So he comes to the United States and signs with the Los Angeles Galaxy, and who's my MLS team. And he made his debut this past Saturday in the Los Angeles Derby against LAFC, otherwise known as El Tráfico.
Oh my God.
Which I think is a tremendous nickname for the rivalry. I think that just, you got the Spanish element to it. You've got the fact that LA is like one of the worst cities when it comes to traffic.
I feel like the stadiums are probably like 8 miles apart, but it'll probably take like 45 minutes.
So every time I go up to a Galaxy game, the traffic is so bad. Or anytime I drive over to Expedition Park, where LAFC's new stadium is going to be, where the Coliseum is, it's just absolutely terrible. But Zlatan came on in the 71st minute, and he absolutely put on a show. When he came on, the Galaxy were down 3-1, but they were down 3-0 early in the match, and I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, this is an absolute disaster. But then Sebastian Lletget scored to make it 3-1. Servite alum Chris Pontius scored to bring the Galaxy to within one, and then Zlatan came in and just was absolutely tremendous, scoring a 40-yard volley for his first MLS goal, and it was just
to tie the game.
And when I saw it, I just went absolutely berserk. I'm pretty sure I blacked out. It was just absolutely just amazing. And then in the 91st minute, he scores the game-winning header to give the Galaxy a 4-3 win, sending me into absolute delirium and breaking the hearts of all 20 LAFC fans.
That's pretty incredible, Nate. And so, would you say that this it was the greatest MLS game you've ever seen?
I think so. Yeah, I think it was the greatest MLS game I've ever seen, and I've seen the Galaxy win multiple MLS Cups. But for me, this was, given the storyline, the moment, and what this does for the league, I think that this was certainly one of the best MLS games I've ever seen. And it's only the second time in MLS history in which a team has trailed 3-0 at half and has come back to win. Last year, the Seattle Sounders did it against DC United, but this trumps that by far, given the fact that it is Zlatan Ibrahimovic, given the fact that it was against LAFC. Like, if he had done this against Sporting Kansas City or against Vancouver, or even if he had done this against our other main rivals, the San Jose Earthquakes, I don't think it would have been as special. But because he did it against LAFC in, this battle for Los Angeles, this battle for superiority in Los Angeles, and the fact that LAFC, I'm sure LAFC fans thought for a while that they were going to get Zlatan Ibrahimovic, we decided to come to a winning club. And you know what? He was a difference maker, and he was absolutely tremendous. And I can't even think of the words. There's not enough superlatives to describe just my emotions on Saturday. Going down 3-0, I was thinking, oh my gosh, my hatred for Carlos Vela just absolutely skyrocketed after he scored 2 very beautiful goals. Oh yeah. And I don't think that no one should ignore Carlos Vela's performance. I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, here we go again. This team sucks. But Zlatan Ibrahimovic came on, and it wasn't just Zlatan. I got to give a shout out to Sebastian Lletget, who scored the goal to get the Galaxy back in it, and then to, like I said earlier, Servite alum Chris Pontius, and then Zlatan was Zlatan. It's like he said, the fans were chanting for Zlatan, and I gave them Zlatan.
Yeah, and I think when I was watching, I didn't watch the match, I'll admit it, because I just didn't. It was MLS, but I was watching the highlights, and I was like, wow, the quality in these goals are freaking fantastic. I think one goal, I cannot recall which exact goal it was kind of a dribbler into the back of the net and, some defensive mistakes. Yeah. So on and so forth. So, that was a little stereotypically MLS, I would say. But, as you mentioned, Carlos Vela, his goals were fantastic. And both those Zlatan's goals were, as what we would expect from the quality of a player like him. So, these are 2 players that have found success in Europe on some of the biggest stages. And we're seeing their talents. I don't know if Zlatan's necessarily in his prime. You may disagree with me on that, but Carlos Vela is definitely still in his prime. Players coming to America and potentially in just making the league better, and I think it's really exciting. With that being said, though, I know that we definitely have some differences in opinions on this topic, but I'll just throw out this question, Nate. What does Zlatan coming to MLS, signing for the LA Galaxy, what does that mean for MLS as a whole to you?
Well, I think that it means that, this may sound counterintuitive to people, but I think that this can help MLS shake off the idea of it being a retirement league. And I know people will say, well, Zlatan's 36 years old, but Zlatan, I think he's still in his prime. This is a guy who just last season scored 17 goals for Manchester United. People said he was too old for the Premier League. He comes in and scores 17 goals. So, I think that most clubs in the world would love to have Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Versus, when David Beckham came over, I don't think that there were a lot of clubs who would have wanted David Beckham at that time. With Schweinsteiger in Chicago, there aren't a lot of teams at the time who would want Schweinsteiger on their team. But with Zlatan, I think he's still in his prime, because I think that, if any team in the world would want Zlatan Ibrahimovic at this point. So, people may say it's a retirement league. He's coming over. He's 36 years old. But I think that because of the fact that he's still in his prime can help shake off the idea that MLS is a retirement league.
I don't disagree with you that Zlatan is as good as he's ever been, especially considering that last season at Manchester United, he scored as many goals as he did. And on top of that, came back early from injury and just he's a worker. He, as much as we like to get caught up in his just not atrocious, his ostentatious commentary sometimes.
Ostentatious, that's a good word.
I think that, thank you. I think that, again, he's a player who is still, I don't want to say prime, physically, but performance-wise, his performances are still as good as they've ever been. But I would like to push back on your point about, would any team in the world want Zlatan? Because Zlatan, no matter where he's playing, is going to demand a high dollar amount, right? And so would Real Madrid want to pay Zlatan Ibrahimovic to come off the bench like he would? I'm just thinking realistically, of course you would want a player of Zlatan's quality at this point in his career on your team, but with the amount of money that he's demanding at this point in his career, I think MLS is still falling into that stereotype of being a league that is willing to play these older players enough money to come play. Because I don't know, like I can't see an Arsenal going and paying Zlatan to come off the bench for them. I can't see Bayern Munich doing that at this point. And so, and Zlatan knows that with the signing of Lukaku and just sort of the terrible ways in which Jose Mourinho has managed Man United this year, he knows that he wasn't going to really get much playing time there. And I think that coming to the Galaxy for him, therefore, like, I think even though he's 36 and still performing at a really high level, I think we're going to see a decline in the future. I mean, he knows his body. He knows it's obviously when you're 36, it's harder to do the things
coming off a knee surgery.
Exactly. And so, I mean, I think we saw something similar with David Ortiz. He was 40 years old and having some of the best offensive seasons that he has ever had, but he decided to call it quits because he was like, every single day it was harder and harder to go out there. Even though the performances were still the same, it's harder and harder to go out there every single day. So I think that going to the LA Galaxy for him, and I'm not saying it's bad for MLS. I'm just saying that this is where he's probably going to retire, and I'm excited that he's here because Zlatan is probably one of just the biggest icons in the sport. Arguably behind David Beckham, the biggest player that MLS has ever seen come over. And I think it's going to make for an amazing I am more inclined to watch MLS now that Zlatan is here, and I think that's all that matters, really.
Yeah, and I think that because of what happened on Saturday, I think you could say now the face of MLS, even though he only played 21 minutes, the face of MLS is now Zlatan Ibrahimovic. But just to kind of respond to a couple of the points you made, if you actually look at a lot of the signings in MLS now, a lot of the signings that are being made, particularly look at a team like Atlanta United, a lot of the signings are young South American players. 18, 19-year-old South American players. And I think that really, because people talk about, there's been 3 stages to MLS. There was kind of the original MLS. There was MLS 2.0, which was guys like David Beckham, David Villa, like the signing those big-time European players. And now we're in MLS 3.0, which is putting the focus on South American players. But when you can sign Zlatan Ibrahimovic, you have to do that. I don't care. Just the fact that his name alone, like you said, makes you more inclined to watch MLS. And also, you talk about the money. The LA Galaxy are only paying him $3 million for two seasons because I'm not sure how familiar you are with MLS salary cap rules, but there's designated players who those players' salaries do not count against the team's salary cap. So like Giovanni Dos Santos, Jonathan Dos Santos, David Villa, those guys are designated players. But Zlatan Ibrahimovic is actually a TAM player, targeted allocated money. So they're only paying him $1.5 million a year versus the millions of dollars he was making in with Manchester United. He actually took a 95% pay cut to come to MLS. So I think that you talk about the money aspect to it. Obviously, different leagues don't have the same salary cap rules that MLS has. But I think that for the money that the Galaxy are paying him, I mean, really, he paid for that contract within what he did on Saturday.
20 minutes.
within 20 minutes, it's already worth it. Mm-hmm. So obviously, most teams would not want to shell out the big time money for a guy like Zlatan Ibrahimovic at his age, coming off knee surgeries. But given what the Galaxy were able to do with their targeted allocated money, to get him for $3 million for 2 seasons, that's something that you have to do.
Yeah, definitely, Nate. And so I think regardless of where both of us stand on this issue, Zlatan is here.
Yeah.
And I think like Zlatan said in his letter in the LA Times to the people of Los Angeles, "You're welcome, Los Angeles. Zlatan is here." So yeah, what a time. And I would say a fan base that is not nearly as excited is the Borussia Dortmund fan base.
Yes.
Kind of moving on here. And you are a fan of both the LA Galaxy and Borussia Dortmund. So your weekend was full of highs and lows, my friend. And wow, what a weekend it was for Borussia Dortmund. I mean, I'll just, I'm not even going to say anything. I'll let you go at it. Because they played Bayern Munich over the weekend.
Der Klassiker.
Yes, and let's just say it didn't go well.
So, so you said Bayern faced off against Dortmund in Der Klassiker this weekend, and it was not a competitive match. Bayern absolutely slapped Dortmund around 6-0. I actually went out to watch this match on Saturday morning with the San Diego Dortmund supporters group. We got together with the Bayern supporters group, and I thought, it'll be fun to get together. I got a couple friends that are Bayern fans, and This was not fun. This was not fun. The Bayern fans were doing their stupid chants the entire match, and it was 5-0 at halftime, and so I actually left in the 60th minute. Shout out to my sister who came to pick me up because I could not take any more of it. It was just some of the worst football I've ever seen in my life. The defending was terrible. The goalkeeping was terrible. Gonzalo Castro losing the ball in the middle of the field, and then it was embarrassing. Like, honestly, I was embarrassed to be wearing my Dortmund kit and my Dortmund scarf, hanging out with these Bayern fans. It was embarrassing. And this has to signal some type of change for Borussia Dortmund if we ever want to challenge for the title again, because we are a million miles away from where Bayern is. They are just absolutely flying away with the league, and we're going to struggle to finish top 4. So this has to signal some type of changes for Dortmund.
Yeah, so Nate, I think that brings up the question. You mentioned that serious changes need to happen. What specific changes do you think need to happen in order for Dortmund to kind of return to where they once were 2 or 3 years ago?
Well, I think you have to get a new manager. Peter Stöger wasn't the long-term solution, but and this actually was his first loss in the Bundesliga since he took over in about mid-December. So, but
what a way to lose!
It was first off
that made up for all the other losses.
Yeah, first off, it was like the least inspiring unbeaten run in the history of unbeaten runs.
A bunch of 1-0s.
And a bunch of 1-0s with a lot of draws. But I don't understand his tactics. I don't understand why Dortmund, with their poor defending, continues to play this high line, because all it does is just leave you completely exposed at the back. And once a team, especially of quality of Bayern's, breaks through that high line, you've got Robert Lewandowski one-on-one with Roman Bürki, who's going to win that every single time. It's going to be Lewandowski. So, maybe we should not have fired the guy who took us to a Champions League quarterfinal last season. I don't know. Just a thought. I think that what we need to do is, I think we need to sell an attacking piece. Maybe even sell someone like Christian Pulisic, whose value I think right now, maybe this summer, could be at a all-time high, even without him playing in a World Cup. Again, neither here nor there.
The ghosts.
But sell an attacking piece like a Christian Pulisic, because Marco Reus just signed a new contract. I don't see them selling Andre Schürrle or Mario Götze, but sell a guy like Pulisic and bring in a defender or 2 or 3, or maybe just bring in a whole new back line, and then also bring in a new goalkeeper, Roman Bürki. Sorry, that was just terrible. Just he's made so many mistakes this year, and his goalkeeping on Saturday was just absolutely atrocious. You could have put a cardboard cutout, and it still would have done better than him.
Who are some specific names that you would like to see Dortmund bring in this summer to address some of these problems that you just mentioned?
I was actually just reading today. They were considering bringing in a Norwegian defender 19-year-old Norwegian defender whose name is escaping me right now. And that's the thing, is that I'm not sure who specific names that I can think of, but definitely really anyone better than what we've got right now. Who knows? bring in the entire LA Galaxy to come in and play, and I'm sure they could put in better performances than what Dortmund's putting in right now.
Yeah, definitely. So from Dortmund to another team that's really been struggling, Chelsea. And Chelsea, yet again, proved that this season they cannot win in big games and got crushed by Spurs by a score of 3-1. And this, in fact, was Tottenham's first win at Stamford Bridge since 1990.
Yeah, first one in the Premier League era.
Yeah, first one in the Premier League era, which I think is really indicative of a power shift potentially that teams like Tottenham, teams like Liverpool are kind of back in business. But Nate, I think before we even get into what the nitty-gritty of what the match was actually about, you had some points that you wanted to bring up regarding the last time Tottenham won at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, so actually the last time that Tottenham won at Stamford Bridge was February of 1990. So things that still existed back then were things like the USSR was still a country the last time that Spurs won at Stamford Bridge. The World Wide Web actually did not exist yet. The World Wide Web was not a thing until 1991. And the last time that Spurs won at Stamford Bridge, George H.W. Bush was president of the United States. So, yeah, that just lets you know how long it's been for Spurs breaking that.
Neither of us were alive.
Yes, yeah, neither of us were alive. My parents hadn't even met yet.
Wow, really?
Yeah. They didn't get married till 94.
Okay. Yeah, so, just to give y'all a little perspective as to, how Chelsea have historically just dominated Tottenham over the past 3 decades. And so now, potentially there's been a power shift in that. But
this was actually Spurs' their second ever win under Pochettino away to a top 6 side.
Really?
This was their second win under Pochettino.
Yeah,
away to top 6.
So I know this is a slight tangent, but I'm curious. So this is his second win against the top 6 side in the Premier League. Away.
Yeah.
With that being said, Real Madrid want to hire him as the manager next year?
I think Pochettino, given the fact that Tottenham does not have a huge spending budget, given the fact that they really haven't made any big time signings over the past few seasons, and I know we like to make fun of Tottenham for the lack of trophies and putting the pressure on and all that, but I think Pochettino, I think he's a good manager. I think he's a good manager who's really done as good of a job as he can with what he's got.
Yeah, well, I think regardless of where Tottenham's current manager is next season, Nate, I want to hear what you saw in the match. What really stuck out to you, and how was Tottenham able to get this really clutch win away?
Yeah, so the match opened up with Morata scoring what was actually a pretty good header. And I know that we've talked a lot on this show about Morata and about his struggles, but he scored in the FA Cup quarterfinals a few weeks ago. I think he's starting to get his groove back, but pretty much from that point on, it was like all Tottenham. Christian Eriksen scoring an absolute banger. That I know there was some debate over whether the keeper could save it. I don't think he could have saved it because this was it was a laser shot from Christian Eriksen. And then Dele Alli bagged a brace to give Tottenham the 3-1 win. And I know that Dele Alli has not put in consistent performances this year, and I think that for a while, I think that there was a real question as to whether he was going to be in England's starting 11 at the World Cup, given the fact of how well Jesse Lingard has played. And I am a huge Jesse Lingard fan, and I would like to see him at the World Cup, but I think this past weekend we saw how good Dele Alli can be, and when he's at his best. And I think that when he's at his best versus when Jesse Lingard's at his best, you have to have Dele Alli in the starting 11 in the starting 11 come Russia 2018.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jesse Lingard, but also Jack Wilshere has put in really good performances for an Arsenal team whose season hasn't gone necessarily as planned, but even then, Jack Wilshere has kind of been the only really consistently good player on that Arsenal team. So Dele Alli's had some stiff competition in this England side, but I think in a game like this, I think Gareth Southgate, the manager of the British national team, definitely will have to take a second look at Dele Alli when it comes to the World Cup. And, I think we're definitely going to see him in the starting 11, that's for sure. However, Nate, this is kind of a death blow in a certain way to Chelsea, or at least I think so. I mean, do you think that the race for the top 4, the race for qualifying for Champions League next season, do you think that race is over?
Yeah, it's done. It's over. Tottenham put the nail in the coffin, calling the dogs and put out the fire. I think that it's done for Chelsea. I think that their best hope is to finish 5th. And I would just like to point out that the day before the Premier League season began, I sent a text to my good friend Ben Friedel over here, and I said, "Hey man, what are your Premier League predictions? Who do you think's going to win? Who do you think's going to finish top 4?" And I said that it was going to be, the top 4 was going to be City, United, Spurs, Liverpool, meaning that Arsenal was going to be out and that Chelsea was going to be out, versus my friend Ben Friedel said that Chelsea was going to be in the top 4. Well, it looks like they're not going to be in the top 4, so I just figured that we should just put that out there, let the listeners know that I was correct and you were incorrect.
Yes. Well, I did have Man City winning it all.
That is true.
I don't think that's the hottest of takes, but at least I got that much right. If I'm going to stick up for myself, there you go. And yeah, so I mean, this was a huge win for Tottenham, and I think they only have one more trophy to compete for this year, which is the FA Cup. And so, Nate, I want to ask you, given this performance, do you think that they could potentially be favorites going into the rest of the FA Cup competition, because teams like Arsenal and Man City are out of that?
Yeah, I think that they're the favorites to win the FA Cup, and I think they will win the FA Cup and win their first trophy since 2008. They got Manchester United coming up in the FA Cup semifinal, but I'll go with Tottenham in that match, and then I'll take Tottenham over. I believe it's Southampton or Chelsea. I'll take Tottenham over either one of those teams. So yeah, I really think that this is it. That Tottenham can finally win a trophy. I don't know, Ben. What about you?
I think I would go with Tottenham in that, because as you mentioned, the teams that are still in it are Manchester United, who, although they're second in the league, have really had their struggles. And
we've touched enough on Manchester United's struggles.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe both of us are just biased because we don't like Man United, which I think is one of the few mutual hatreds we have in this sport is both of us just don't like Man United and Man United fans. Sorry if you're listening, but we don't like you. And
sorry, DK.
So, yeah, I definitely think Spurs will be a winner, and I don't see Chelsea beating them again. Just considering how their team is somewhat in shambles. They're doing worse than Arsenal right now. If that's any testament to how they're doing.
They didn't even think that was possible.
Exactly. And Southampton is the other team in a semi, and they're in a relegation spot right now. So I don't see them really being a threat to.
Did I say Southampton or did I say Sunderland?
You said Southampton. You were good. You were good to go. So
I know it's got to be killing you to be talking about how good Tottenham is right now. It's got to be eating at your soul.
I don't know. I think this is a different discussion for a different day. But I think what I will say is I don't necessarily despise Tottenham because they've really been irrelevant up to this point in terms of not winning trophies. I think winning if they win this FA Cup and continue to beat Arsenal on a regular basis during the regular season. We beat them early on in the year. They beat us on the away leg. So it's kind of been an even split. And also, I don't know many Tottenham fans. So not many people are talking crap to me in my life. So I'm sure if I were to live in North London and be hanging out with all the Arsenal fan TV guys, I would vehemently despise Spurs. But, I think it's been a while, and I'm willing to concede one trophy because Arsenal, we've won plenty of FA Cups over the past few years, and I'm willing to, share one. And I think that's fine. But speaking of trophies, Champions League, arguably the biggest trophy all year, besides the Premier League or any domestic league. The Champions League is what all the biggest teams really want to gun for. And in this, we've officially reached the quarterfinal stage in the Champions League. And this year in the quarterfinals, we are seeing a rematch of what the final was last season, Juventus versus Real Madrid. And Nate, you and I were talking about this. This is such a tough match to call. We are honestly kind of struggling to even form an opinion on who we think is going to win. So what we're going to do right now is try to break down the strengths and weaknesses of each team, and then maybe we can come to some kind of foregone conclusion as to who will win. So Nate, I want to ask you, head-to-head, who has the better attacking force, Juventus or Real Madrid?
Honestly, I think it's a wash. I think it's pretty even.
Be decisive, man.
I think it's even. Honestly, I do, because here's the thing: you got Cristiano Ronaldo, who's just Cristiano Ronaldo, and when you say his name, you already know what I mean. But also, I think that Higuain and Dybala, at their best, are two of the best in the world, and that's the key, is that at their best, because in big games they're not always at their best. Oh my gosh, you know what? Just because of the consistency that Ronaldo puts up in the Champions League, I'm gonna go with Real Madrid versus Dybala and Higuain can be great. We saw that in the second leg against Tottenham, but they can also be not great. So I'll go with Real Madrid. What about midfield? Where do you see the advantage in the midfield?
I think Real Madrid. I think I'm gonna take your side on that, but I don't think it's as close, honestly, because Real Madrid just has quality in the midfield, just so much quality. I mean, when you have Isco coming off the bench,
or Bale coming off the bench,
Gareth Bale coming off the bench, you have Toni Kroos, you have Casemiro in the midfield. It's just virtually unstoppable, and I don't think that's to take anything away from Juventus's midfield, but Real Madrid, I think, arguably have the best midfield in the world. So for me, I think that may go off of your point of quality of attack, because a good attack is reliant on good service, and midfielders are usually the providers of such service. So when you have the best midfield in the world, that makes the job of players like Cristiano Ronaldo that much easier in terms of just putting balls in the back of the net, but also flopping and getting a lot of penalties, Penaldo. So, I mean, I won't even get into that. But Nate, so Real Madrid, better midfield. I think we may both agree on that. What about defense? Who do you have as the best defense out of the two?
I will go with Juventus. And, it sucks because I'm actually a really big Sergio Ramos fan. I know that people aren't necessarily a fan of, his attitude or getting red cards. But I think that, Juventus defensively, and I mean, we saw this last year in the Champions League, just how they were absolute rock in the back line. And, I think that's historically with Juventus. That's one of their strengths is just defense. So I'll go with Juventus.
And even just going off of that, Juve's defensive performance that they put up against Spurs in the round before this, I think, was just one of the better defensive performances.
Particularly in the second leg, yeah.
Yeah, and when they were at Wembley, being a back wall that just would not let anything get through. So I think, I definitely agree with you that Juve probably has the better defense.
Yeah, I mean, what about goalkeeper? I know that you and I kind of went back and forth on this.
Yeah, so I'll go with Gigi Buffon from Juventus, and I know that this is his final year in the league, and he is he is the greatest goalie of all time.
Yeah,
he is the greatest of all time, and I think what's amazing, how old is he? Like 41?
40, I think.
40 or 41. Years old and still putting in quality performances night in and night out. And I'm not willing to bet against the greatest of all time. And, even if he's physically deteriorated to some level, he's still in great shape. And he is, I don't know, just head to head. I would rather go with the greatest goalie who has ever lived versus Keylor Navas.
See, I got to go with Keylor Navas. And I know that he's got his issues, and I know that they're thinking about replacing him in the summer. But Gigi Buffon, he is the greatest of all time, but he is 40 years old. And I think against Spurs, he made some mistakes. And I think that, maybe those are shots that 3 or 4 years ago he would have saved that at this point he's not saving. And so I got to go with Keylor Navas. And I absolutely despise Keylor Navas because he plays for Costa Rica and he always puts up these tremendous performances against the United States. But I'll go with Keylor Navas as a stronger goalkeeper.
Got it. So Nate, then, with all that being said, we've kind of just broken down like where their strengths and weaknesses are. Who do you have winning?
I got Real Madrid. I think that they've been here before. They've won back-to-back Champions League titles, and they know how to win in these big situations. And it's really all they got to play for now is the Champions League because they're out of La Liga, they're out of the Copa del Rey. So I think that given Real Madrid's quality, given their ability to just step it up in big games, I'll go with Real Madrid. What about you, Ben?
I will also go with Real Madrid. I don't want them to win. I want Juve to win, but I think there's a distinct difference between wanting someone to win and objectively thinking who will be the team that comes out on top. I think Ronaldo's going to have another amazing game. He never fails, and in the big games, he always seems to come through, and I'm just not willing to bet against that. I'm not going to be the guy to say that, just because I want Juve to win, I think they're going to win. No, I think Real is going to be the ones to come out on top. And we mentioned this in a previous episode, I think they're the current favorites to win Champions League right now, even though they've kind of fallen out of the La Liga title race. And, I think Ronaldo's just going to be too much to handle. So with that being said, I think there's a couple of other matchups that we are looking at. And Nate, I'm just going to get your one-word reaction out of these next two matchups. Are you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. Barcelona are playing Roma in this quarterfinal round of the Champions League. Who is going to win?
Barcelona.
There you go. So unequivocally, correct?
Unequivocally.
Yep. And Roma, it's been a great run to get this far, but we don't think you're going much further than Lionel Messi. We'll just put it that way. So then next we have Sevilla versus Bayern Munich.
Bayern.
We just thoroughly explained how Bayern dismantled Borussia Dortmund, which is arguably a team of comparable skill level to Sevilla. So if they're beating teams like Dortmund 6-0, I don't even want to know what's going to happen.
And no one's even talking about Bayern as like one of the favorites, but I think that I would take them toe-to-toe any day against Real Madrid, against City, against Liverpool, against Barcelona. Like they're kind of flying under the radar, which is weird for Bayern Munich, but...
Definitely. And I think it's just because they haven't had much competition like all year. Like they haven't had to play the Barcelonas like Real Madrid have had. They haven't had to play the Liverpools and the Man Uniteds like Man City have had. So I think they've just kind of been cruising under the radar in the Bundesliga and, could take potentially Real Madrid down. That's for sure. And then I think I would like more than a one-word reaction for this next matchup because this one, I think, like Real Madrid and Juventus, is going to be really a tough one to call. We have an all-Premier League Champions League quarterfinal of Manchester City versus Liverpool. So, Nate, I want to ask you, is this Man City's most important match of the year? Because keep in mind, Liverpool were the ones to hand Manchester City their first loss earlier this year in January with a 4-3 win against them. So, do you think that Man City... this is their most important game of the year?
I think so, and I think Pep Guardiola would agree. I mean, he even said that the focus for this week is going to be on Liverpool, even with the Manchester derby coming up on Saturday, a chance to clinch the league title. The Champions League is that this is what it's all about for Manchester City now. They won the EFL Cup, they got knocked out of the FA Cup, they're going to win the league. Everything now is focused on the Champions League and trying to be the first Premier League team to win the Champions League since Chelsea in 2012.
Yeah, so Nate, let's try to break down this matchup because I think like Real and Juve, these are two teams that are very evenly matched. So Nate, who has the better attacking force in your mind, Man City or Liverpool?
I got to go with Liverpool, and I know that City's got Jesus and Aguero, but I got to go with Liverpool. I mean, Mo Salah, enough said.
Mo Salah,
absolutely incredible. Firmino.
Sadio Mane.
Yeah, Mane. I think that you got to go with Liverpool. They've just been absolutely flying through everyone in the Premier League. What about midfield? What would you say, Ben?
I would go with Manchester City. I think Man City's midfield, I would take Bernardo Silva. I would take both of the Silvas, Bernardo Silva and David Silva, over Adam Lallana and Oxlade-Chamberlain. I think it's just as clear as that. The Manchester City's midfield, I mean, you could even put Leroy Sané on the wing in that category. Mm-hmm. He's just real quality, and I think.
I mean, we haven't even mentioned Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah, Kevin De Bruyne, like that midfield is completely stacked, and when you have Ilkay Gundogan coming off the bench for you, I think that's just unequivocally the best midfield in the Premier League. I'll give them that, and Liverpool, I think losing Coutinho has been hurtful in that way, and even though they've proved to be relatively unstoppable in terms because their attack is just a force, I think their midfield is going to be something that they need to address in the offseason. I know Naby Keita is coming in from RB Leipzig, and he has been great, but could we see a Christian Pulisic go to Liverpool? I think that might be a match made in heaven, so to speak, since Man United would have probably, in my mind, been the other team, but they went out and got Alexis Sanchez to fill that role. So maybe we could see Liverpool as a team to go get Christian Pulisic. But, I mean, that's neither here nor there. We're talking about Champions League. Sorry that I got a little off track there. But Nate, who do you have as the better defense? Because both of these teams have had their defensive struggles in recent times. So who do you have as having the better defensive team?
I'll go with City. I think that not only can their defense, provide a wall and keep teams from scoring, but they're also pretty good going forward. You got Kyle Walker. They're very good going forward. So I got to go with City, even with the way that Liverpool's been able to defend recently with Virgil van Dijk and finally getting a decent center back pairing that does not include Dejan Lovren. But I'll go with City, and then goalie. I mean, come on.
Manchester City unequivocally has the better goalkeeper. Just to elaborate on that, whoever they start, Loris Karius, Simone Mignolet, I think both of them are equally as memeable. We're gonna get into that later, actually. Yes. But I think that's definitely something that Liverpool is going to need to address in this offseason. Like, who is going to be a goalie that comes in to replace just sort of the atrocious situation that they've been dealing with so far this season. So, Nate, I think we've sort of broken it down. Who do you have in this game?
I'm going to go with Liverpool with the upset. I think that just because of what they've got going forward, I think that Salah, Mane, and Firmino is enough to win. And I think it could be a shootout over two legs. But I'm going to go with Liverpool to pull off the upset because Liverpool has the confidence because, even when they lost 5-0 to City back in September, they were dominating that game for the first part, and then Mane got the red card. They've already beaten City once this year, so they know that they can go toe-to-toe with City. So I'm going to go with Liverpool. What about you, Ben?
Before I give my prediction, I want to know an aggregate score from you. What is your predicted aggregate score from this draw?
I'll go 6-4 Liverpool.
Okay, I'll go 10-8. We're going to see a lot of goals. I think I have Manchester City in this. I think this is their season, and I don't think we've ever seen a Manchester City side this good, backed by arguably the best manager in the world, Pep Guardiola. It's just, I'm not willing to bet against a team that has just been so consistent this year, and albeit Liverpool over the past couple months have been virtually unstoppable, but just given their inconsistency over the course of the full season, I'm not willing to lean into Liverpool on the upset with this one. I think Manchester City is the more experienced, quality side, and I think they're going to come out on top. Whether I think Manchester City will win the Champions League, I think is a different question, though. I think Liverpool may have a better chance of winning the whole thing than Manchester City does.
Really?
Because this attack, I think, is... I'll say it. I think Liverpool's attack is the best attack in the world.
I think so too. Yeah.
Their attack, especially this season, with Mo Salah being literally as good as Lionel Messi this year, is just put Liverpool's attack on a whole different planet. And I think that they would just be such a hard force to deal with for a Real Madrid, for Bayern Munich. They've never played this Liverpool side, even in the past 3 to 4 years. So it's something completely unfamiliar for them to go into an atmosphere like Anfield and just try to beat a Liverpool team that has just, I think proved everyone wrong this year.
Absolutely,
I think they've just had an incredible year. So I think no matter if they win or lose this game, this has been a successful tournament for Liverpool and just an overall successful season for them. And I think they're just really on the right track. And I'm not going to go too far as to predict them winning it all next year, but I think definitely they have a shot of winning the Premier League, I should say. Not Champions League, Premier League next year, and being a title favorite in that regard. So, wow, that was a lot of soccer. We were coming up on 40 minutes of this episode. Nate and I are both really fired up about it, so thanks for hanging in there with us, guys.
Yes, thank you so much for listening to our incoherent ramblings.
Definitely.
Minutes.
But moving on, I think when we come back from the break, we're going to be talking about college basketball. The finals of NCAA March Madness are tonight. We know Nate's really excited about it, so he's going to give all of his commentary about it when we come back. Stay tuned, everyone.
Like what you're hearing? Well, I've got news for you. You no longer have to wait a whole week to hear from your favorite sports personalities. Hi, I'm Nate Wiggins, and Ben Friedel and I have got you covered. Give our show, The Unathletic, a sports podcast, a listen. We release new episodes every Monday and are committed to bringing you the best content. That's right, the very best content.
Welcome back to The Unathletic, everyone. When we were last with you, we were talking all about soccer. 40 minutes, in fact, of soccer. So now we're actually going to move to NCAA March Madness, and we're, in fact, going to start with the women, Nate. What went on over the weekend with women's college basketball?
Well, who says women's basketball is boring? I'll tell you who says that losers say it's boring, because there were 3 incredible games this weekend, both Final Four games and the national championship. So on Friday night, the Final Four, both games went in overtime for the first time in Final Four history on, I believe, either the men and the women's side. First time that both Final Four games went into overtime, and Mississippi State beat Louisville 73-63 in overtime. And this was an incredible game. Mississippi State hitting a three-pointer to tie the game to send it into overtime, and then making a huge defensive stand at the very end to keep the game tied and sending it into overtime. And then Notre Dame in the second game beating undefeated UConn 91-89 on a game winner by Arike Ogunbowale, who actually, her brother actually plays in the NFL, but now she's the real star of the family. And how about UConn? You lose 2 games in 2 years, and in neither one of those, you lose 2 games in the span of 2 seasons, and you're not winning the national championship in either one of those years. Like that, yeah. I actually kind of felt bad for UConn after that game to go undefeated again and to lose again. I feel bad for the 2 seniors on that team, but Notre Dame outplayed them, and something that I really noticed during this game was that UConn, them not playing close games really hurt them, because down the stretch, they were not sure what to do. And they were lucky to even get that game in overtime, because frankly, Notre Dame should have won in regulation, but they choked it away. And then in the national championship, Notre Dame came back from 15 down to beat Mississippi State 61-58 on another game-winning three-pointer by Ogunbowale. And poor Mississippi State to lose in back-to-back national championships, that really has to suck. But these were some of the most exciting basketball games I've ever seen. Men's, women's, college, NBA, high school, freaking JV basketball, which I do coach, by the way. Freaking, like, basketball, pick-up basketball in the park. Like, this is some of the best, most exciting basketball games I've ever seen. And if you didn't watch these games because you think women's basketball was boring or you think women's basketball was a joke, and that sucks for you, because you missed some incredible basketball. It was just tremendous.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
So I actually missed out on this. So when did this game happen?
The Final Four was on Friday, and the national championship was yesterday.
Yeah, so I had no excuses. I should have watched it. So maybe I'm falling into that camp of not thinking women's college basketball is
It was really exciting, and I think that people often think, well, is UConn ruining women's basketball because they're so dominant? But the thing is that now these other programs have caught up to UConn, and yeah, maybe UConn will win in the first round by 70 points and will win in the next round by 60 points. But once they get to the Final Four, Mississippi State last year outplayed UConn in that game. This year, Notre Dame outplayed UConn. So the gap has really closed. And these teams, I was talking to my mom about this actually, these teams are now recruiting to beat UConn. They're now getting bigger physical players inside. They're recruiting to beat UConn. So now UConn, their monopoly on women's college basketball is no longer dominated by UConn, because now it's 2 years removed from winning a national championship.
Yeah. So UConn's definitely going to need to do some rebuilding and just rethinking in that way. It's been, that's definitely not the standard that Gino Auriemma has set at that program for sure. And, congratulations to Notre Dame women's basketball. That I think 2 game-winning threes by Agumbawale, yes. That is something she will never forget. And I think you said it. Like, she's now the family athletic star.
Definitely.
Screw her brothers in the NFL. Like, this is freaking crazy. Like, that's awesome. And now I think, Nate, let's recap on the men's side what went down in the Final Four. So let's start with Michigan. So Michigan took on the Cinderella team of the tournament, Loyola Chicago, and what went down, Nate?
Well, I said last week when I did my short little March Madness segment that the clock was going to strike midnight for Cinderella. And it did, as Michigan defeated them 69-57. And my emotions were all over the place watching this game. Michigan got off to a great start, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, okay, we got this. And then for about 20 minutes, they just absolutely tanked. And they were trailing at halftime, and Loyola was 24-0 this year when leading at halftime. And I thought to myself, okay, this is not good, but I think John Beilein is a criminally underrated head coach, and particularly his ability to make adjustments at halftime and to say, hey, this is what we need to be doing better. And, in the second half, Michigan was down 10 in the second half, and then Michigan's defense just turned it up a notch. And we're forcing turnovers, and Mo Wagner, I love you so much, Mo Wagner. He was absolutely, I've talked before about how the matchup problem that he sets, because he can step out, he can hit jump shots, but he can also just be a big physical presence inside. And I think that, he was a difference maker. He was certainly a difference maker, and particularly Michigan's defense in general was a difference maker. But I do have to say congratulations to Loyola becoming only the 4th 11 seed to make it to the Final Four. But I got so tired of seeing Sister Jean all over the place. That was just so annoying. So,
wow.
Annoyed
by Sister Jean? She's 98, bro.
Nothing against
She's
her.
a 98-year-old nun.
I just got so annoyed of seeing her on the sideline and seeing the bobbleheads. Everyone talking about Sister Jean. Well, guess what? Folks are talking about Michigan now, so
oh my gosh,
nothing against.
You are a heartless man.
It's not her fault. It's not her fault. I just got tired of seeing her. Just got tired of seeing her.
Oh my gosh.
Nothing against
Michigan fans. Am I right?
Nothing against her. Nothing against the woman. She seems like a nice, sweet old lady. It's just I got tired of seeing her face everywhere. Why is that a bad thing?
Okay, moving on. So we have Villanova, who played KU, and I think this was the story of can KU finally get over the hump, because when they get late in the tournament, they're not able to come through. But yet again, I think they fell into the same storyline that they've been accustomed to, Nate.
Yeah, when Villanova hits 18 threes and sets a Final Four record, it's tough. It's tough to come back from that. But Nova, they could not miss from the 3-point line. And I'm going to be totally honest. I actually stopped watching this game at halftime and went to In-N-Out because A, it was a blowout, and B, I was absolutely starving. Villanova, I said last week on the show when I did my March Madness segment that I thought Jalen Brunson was the best player in the country, and he actually was awarded the National Player of the Year award. And he's just an absolute difference maker. And I talk about how good of a coach John Beilein is. Jay Wright is also a tremendous head coach, and we got 2 of the best head coaches in college basketball in the final. And I think that right now the way these teams are playing, Michigan and Villanova are the two best teams in college basketball.
Yeah, so Nate, I think it's important to put out there that you are a Michigan fan.
Yes.
If you haven't figured that out already on this show,
I'm literally wearing my Michigan shirt right now.
He is wearing his Michigan shirt. So Nate, I imagine that your blood pressure is dangerously high.
I'm so nervous.
And so you said you're nervous. What other emotions are going through your head right now?
I am just kind of a mixture of really excited and nervous. I have trouble sleeping, and I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, and the first thing that popped into my mind was oh my gosh, I'm so nervous for this game. I went on a run. It's 7:15, and the whole time thinking through my run, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous for this game. And right now, I'm just already sweating profusely. I am just absolutely terrified of Villanova, but I think we can win. I do think that Michigan, they're not just going to lay down quietly. If there's one thing that we know from John Beilein is that he's not just going to give up because they're going up against one of the best teams in the country.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think is going how do you think this game is going to go down? I think you can take into consideration how both teams have gotten here for sure, but how do you see this game going, and where do you see one team kind of succeeding over another? Like, what's going to be the difference, essentially?
Well, you look at how both these teams have gotten here. They've taken really different paths to get here. I mean, Villanova has been ranked in the top 5 since November. They were the preseason ranked number 6 team. They reached the top 5 in early November. They were ranked number 1 from pretty much the entire month of January. Versus Michigan, who wasn't even ranked in the top 25 until about mid-January, was hovering around that kind of 23 to 20 mark, and then really just turned it on at the end of the season. Both teams are just absolutely really hot right now. Villanova has won 10 in a row, 9 of which have been by double digits, and Michigan has won 14 in a row, including, kind of just running rampant through the Big Ten tournament and then continuing that run in the NCAA tournament. And this is a strength versus strength game. You got Nova's high-powered offense against Michigan's tremendous defense, particularly from the three-point line. Villanova, like I said, hit 18 threes on Saturday, but Michigan is one of the best three-point defenses in the country. And, Michigan can hit the three ball too. So, I think that for Michigan to pull off the upset, it's got to start on the defensive end. Against Loyola Chicago, when they were down, they started to force a lot of turnovers, and it got to the point where I think Loyola Chicago had like 8 straight possessions that ended in a turnover, and I think that Michigan has got to do that. It's got to start with Michigan's guards. Muhammad Ali Abdur-Rahman and Xavier Simpson have got to put the pressure on Jalen Brunson, particularly Jalen Brunson, and they've got to force him into turnovers. They've got to force Villanova into bad shots. And I think that if they can do that, then Michigan can pull off the upset. But Michigan's got to hit shots too. And I know Rahman did not shoot the ball well on Saturday. Simpson did not shoot the ball well on Saturday. So those guys that's going to be the key for Michigan. It's going to be the guard play. If their guards play well, then I think Michigan's got a good chance tonight.
So who do you got?
I got Villanova. Yes, it really hurts me to say this, but I got Villanova. But hopefully, I'm kind of hoping for a little bit of a reverse jinx here. I mean, I did say after the Sweet 16 that I really wanted to pick Michigan, but I thought Duke was going to win the championship. So I'll continue to pick against Michigan. I'll go with Villanova. But actually, if Michigan wins tonight, I will win the Super Weenie Hut Junior bracket group. No, Super Weenie Hut General bracket group.
Oh my God.
But if Villanova wins, I'll drop to 8th place. But if Michigan can pull off the win tonight, I will be champion of the bracket group, and that is good enough for me.
Yep, that is definitely good enough for you. So national championship. What time is it on tonight?
It's at 6 o'clock tonight. Yeah,
6 o'clock tonight. So sorry, those of you on the East Coast, but it's gonna be a late game, and
that sucks for you for living on the East Coast.
Definitely. So the NCAA tournament, March Madness, is gonna come to a final conclusion tonight.
One shining moment.
And so it's nostalgic because, what a season of college basketball it was. March Madness obviously is your favorite time of the year, Nate. You absolutely love it. So, but you could potentially see your favorite college basketball team coming out on top. So it would
be nice. It would be nice, and it would put the pressure on Michigan football to get their act together.
Yeah,
but that's neither here nor there.
And then guys like me will have to hear Nate bragging about it profusely for an entire year.
Honestly, the biggest reason why I want Michigan to win, it would be great because one of my friends, Cole's abroad right now, and if Michigan wins a championship, then when he gets back, I'm just going to be making fun of him for it for pretty much the entire year.
Yeah,
so
Cole is a Ohio State fan, so
yes.
There you go.
Sucks for him.
Two guys from San Diego just rooting for these.
Hey,
big
my
schools
mom
in the
went
Midwest.
to Michigan. My mom went to Michigan.
What about Cole? What does he have?
I think his family's from Ohio.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, moving on. When we come back, we're going to let you know who or what someone said is going to ride the bus this week. We're going to also give you a truncated USD update since we've been away. And also we're going to give you our final thoughts. So what we will be watching this week in the world of sports. Stay tuned, everyone. We'll be right back.
Like what you're hearing? Well, I've got news for you. You no longer have to wait for a whole week to hear from your favorite sports personalities. Hi, I'm Matt Hendrickson, and Nigel Ward and I have got you covered. Give our show, Rev Up Those Fryers, a listen. We release new episodes every Friday and are committed to bringing you the best content. That's right, the best content.
Welcome back to the Unathletic, everyone. When we were last with you, Nate was getting incredibly nervous because his Michigan Wolverines are in the finals of the NCAA Men's Basketball March Madness. And so now we are actually going to kind of wrap up the show here and let you know who or what someone said we'll ride the bus today. So, Nate, take it away.
So, riding the bus this week is going to be Jim Nantz for his mispronunciation of the word meme. And just to give you a little context for this, so during the Michigan-Loyola game, there was a point in the game where Mo Wagner went out of bounds to chase a ball, and he actually ended up jumping out of bounds and jumping into the little like announcer's desk, or jumping. He actually jumped over the announcer's desk to where Jim Nantz, Bill Rafney, and Grant Hill were sitting. And when he jumped over that, you could see this look on Grant Hill's face, and Grant Hill looked absolutely terrified. And so when Jim Nantz was talking about it, he said, oh, look out, Grant Hill, you're about to become a meme.
Meme.
A meme.
Me space me.
Yes. And in doing that, Jim Nantz himself became a meme.
He became a meme.
And I mean, I saw this all over Twitter, and it was just... people were having a field day with this. And actually, Jim Nantz, I think, is one of the best color commentators. He does the Final Four, does the NFL, he does the Masters, and it's actually just kind of funny that he was the one who ended up becoming the meme when he said that Grant Hill was going to become the meme. So, Jim Nantz, ride the bus.
Yeah, dude, come on, get it together.
Come on, Bryce Harper is disappointed in the way you pronounce meme.
Yes, I know. And when you've overtaken Bryce Harper in terms of pronunciation, I mean, Bryce Harper's Mormon. I'll go there. There you go. That's just sort of the extent to your wrongdoing, Jim Nantz. So, yeah, I mean, there we go. We didn't have West Ham United ride the bus for a third straight week when we easily could have.
Yeah.
Because they're about to get relegated. Anyways, so Nate, give me your USD update. What's been going on at USD, and what has caught your attention?
Not much. I'm still kind of waiting for the basketball team to hire a head coach.
Oh my god! Moving on.
But actually, wait! I cannot believe I didn't mention this. Over break, I was talking to Olin Carter III, and he said from the basketball team, and he said he'd be willing to come on the podcast sometime soon.
This is news to me. So.
Yeah, I should have brought this up with you a while ago.
So we got
we're gonna have Olin Carter III.
OC3.
OC3 is gonna be on the show.
There you go. He is arguably the best player on USD basketball, and helped carry USD to a quarterfinal in the CIT.
Quarterfinal in the CIT, yeah, CIT. Sorry, quarterfinal, 20 wins.
Yeah, so he's one of our best players. So wow, that'll be really awesome.
Yeah,
thanks
I
for
should have told you about that. I completely dropped. I was thinking about this during this episode. I was like, oh shoot, I need to tell Ben about Olin Carter.
That's pretty funny. But yeah, so just look out for that in an upcoming episode of the Unathletic. But in the meantime, Nate, what will you be watching this week in the world of sports?
Well, I mean, obviously we got the national championship tonight. We got Champions League coming up this week. But I'm really looking forward to the Masters. And the Masters, I said a couple weeks ago, I think Tiger's going to win, and I'm going to stick by my prediction. I think Tiger's going to win the Masters, and hopefully it'll be something that we talk about on next week's show.
Yeah, most definitely.
Ben, what about you?
For me, it's going to have to be Champions League. Gotta love Champions League soccer. And the matchups, I think, this week as well as next week are too good not to watch. So I'll definitely be watching Champions League. And we're coming to the final stretch now. And
it's great.
It is great. I really don't want Real to win for a third straight year.
Yeah, I don't want to either.
It's getting kind of repetitive at this point. But, if they end up winning, I mean, Ronaldo, he's an unstoppable force. And
but there's also another unstoppable force in La Liga, and his name is Messi. So
yes,
we'll watch out for Barcelona.
Definitely Barcelona. They play next week, though. I believe so.
They do?
Right?
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, so that wraps up this edition of the Unathletic. I hope you guys enjoyed listening, and we will be back next Monday. We're going to continue our Monday schedule, and so we look forward to your company, I should say. We're not going to see them, but yeah, we're peace out, guys. We're out of here.
We'll see you next Monday.
See you next Monday.
Oh, man.
There we go, my man. Check us out on Twitter and on iTunes, YouTube, Facebook, and SoundCloud. Also, check out our sports blog. Articles are released every week, and our writers need your support. In the meantime, we'll be back next week.